Hello, today we will look at the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, and we'll see the parable of the wheat and the weeds, or in the older translations, the wheat and the tares. And we see here the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat, and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from? He answered, An enemy has done this. His slaves said to him, Do you want us to go and pull them up? He replied, No, if you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at harvest time I will say to the harvesters, First collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now, the traditional interpretation of this is to view the wheat and the weeds as symbols for different kinds of people. The wheat are the good people, presumably meaning us, and the weeds are the bad people, presumably meaning someone else, right? And on that interpretation, this parable explains why it is that we, the good people, remember, have to suffer the continued presence of bad people in our midst. But that someday Jesus is going to come back as the harvest master, bundle all those bad people up, and burn them. Boy, isn't that a great thing to look forward to? There's another interpretation, however, which I will offer here, which is that the wheat and the weeds refer to things within me. There are characteristics of mine that tend toward fruitfulness, and there are characteristics that tend toward destruction or lack of fruitfulness. Okay. And the initial temptation, and I use that word advisedly, is to try to go and uproot the bad stuff, pull it up, okay? And you could even find scriptural support for that because Jesus says, Boy, if your hand leads you to sin, chop it off, right? Avoidance of sin at all costs. Okay, he does say that. But if you go with this idea that the key passage here is where Jesus says, No, if you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. You might uproot the wheat along with them. Why would that happen? Because the weeds and the wheat have their roots intertwined. Okay. The problem is that during the growth stage, you can't go and dig up all the weeds out of my character without also digging up the wheat. Look at today's second reading. St. Paul says, We do not even know how to pray as we ought. If we don't know how to pray as we ought, how do we know how to do anything as we ought? Look at the Hebraic wisdom of Jesus' words here. Let them grow together until harvest. And then at the harvest time, we can start letting God do the separating out of the good and the bad. Final thought on this. One of my weaker characteristics is I talk too much, and it would be a source of legitimate criticism, say in second grade, and even in the early parts of my legal practice. Um, could I have therefore decided to become a silent person? Yeah, I could have. Well, if I'd been a completely silent person, there would not be this Substack. Now, you can decide whether that would be a good result or not, but you see my point that by letting a talkative characteristic mature into later life, it actually perhaps was able to result in something productive.